So g'day everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of SteelTalk by Steelcorp. Appreciate you giving up 30 minutes of your Thursday afternoon. Probably most of us here are currently in lockdown, so I'm sure there's not much else better to do than to listen to 3 shed guys talk about sheds for 30 minutes. But I'm pretty pumped to continue our series on commercial sheds. We're passionate about this industry, and we want to make sure that our audience are well informed and really making good shed decisions. So this episode is all about the approval process. This can be a bit of a daunting one for many people. Talking to council, talking to legal people, architects, whatever else can be a bit overpowering, but we want to make sure you're well equipped. So we'll just push on in, and Aaron, over to you.
Yep, so some of you may know and may have joined our previous episodes, but yeah, we're a family-owned company, and my father started the business 20 or so years ago, and now we've got 4 of his sons in the business, Shane being one of them. And yeah, we specialise in commercial and agricultural structures out here in northeast Victoria. So got Josh here, general manager. He's my brother-in-law, and yeah, he's a father of 3 little boys. And Shane, he's my oldest brother, and you've been in every part of the business pretty much since you left school, and he's got a lot of experience on the approval process, so keep an ear open. And yeah, I joined Steelcorp back in 2015 when I left school, and here I am today.
That's us. So we're excited to be here today. And for those of you needing a fresh haircut, if possible, Aaron's your man. So get in touch with him. He's pretty passionate about that. But
no dramas.
Let's kick into the content. And as we have revealed so far, it's all about the approval process. So over to you, Shane.
Yeah, so the problem, many people fail to understand the approval process for a commercial shed. So in our experience, a lot of people don't realise how comprehensive it is. So today we're going to be breaking down the process so we can have a clear submission framework and remove a lot of headaches for you in the future.
That's it. So we're not going to be able to give you all the answers, but we want to make sure that you've got as much as you can to get your process pretty smooth and help give you a clear framework. So we're pretty excited to be sharing a bit of the secret sauce. In our experience, we've highlighted sort of 4 key areas that Aaron's going to just touch on quickly now.
Yep. So we'll start off with the 2 levels of approvals required and the information required within each approval and the benefits of working with professionals, and also staying proactive so you can stick to timelines and whatnot.
So I hope our attendees are ready, but we're going to jump into the hairiest one of all, which is getting your head around the levels of approval. Actually, before we get there, we're excited to announce that we're going to be handing over a bit of an approval checklist for those on the call today. I know there's some on the call that are not far away from getting stuck into their commercial project. So this checklist will be a handy way to give a clear framework on the submission process to council. But as I said, we're going to jump into something that's pretty complex. We'll try and keep it as easy to understand as possible, but it's really key that everyone on the call today gets an understanding of the 2 levels of approval. Level 1 being your high level council approval from a planning approval, and level 2 your building permit or your more nitty gritty compliance level. So Shane's going to run us through these. As Aaron mentioned, Shane's our in-house approval expert. So Shane, we'll hand over to you.
Don't know about expert, but anyway. So the planning permit, this is the first point of call when you're getting a commercial shed. You need to talk to your council, and this is a high level approval, focused on ensuring the development complies with the council schemes and local zonings, and making sure the appearance of your building lines up with the zoning. some practical areas that include the building appearance, such as building finishes. So, example, kind of that council doesn't like zinc or reflective products.
And is it, sorry, to jump in there, that's to ensure that your building or your proposed structure doesn't stand out from others, is that right? Is that why they might put forward an idea for a certain facade or a certain finish on the front of your shed?
Yeah. So you've got to make sure that you fit in with the area. You don't want to have a cottage green shed in the middle of town. It looks a bit like a farm shed. Also, the council makes sure that you're complying with overlays, such as heritage overlays or bushfire management overlays, and ensuring that the proposed development adheres with the zone, as we already said. In Victoria, this approval stage is called a planning permit, and all commercial structures require a planning permit. In New South Wales, this stage of approval is called a development application, and it's only required if it's triggered by an overlay or a setback issue.
That's good. And this level, Shane, is very high level, so early days. Often we might hear people talk about they've got the DA for a project. That's often an early stage, tick off from the council saying what you've put forward. Yes, it lines up with the zoning and the council's regime for that area. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
So level 2 is a bit more of a nitty-gritty deep dive. Over to you, Shane.
Yeah, so level 2, known as the building permit in Victoria or construction certificate in New South Wales. It's the underlying requirement is to ensure that all works are performed comply with national construction codes, Australian standards. This includes your site works, your drainage engineering, structural engineering, fire safety, compliance, adhering to the disabled access requirements. This is obviously a much more detailed stage and needs a lot more comprehensive plans. Every structure requires a building permit in Victoria and a construction certificate in New South Wales.
That's right. And in our experience, Shane, a lot of the level 1 approvals, so your DAs or your planning permits, are released with a number of conditions on them. And the purpose, I guess, of the building permit is to make sure your structure complies with all the rules, not just the structural integrity, but also your civil works tie in with what's required. And a lot of the conditions that are released in the stage 1 approval, so your planning or your DA, are actually addressed in your building permit stage, which gives you the final tick of approval to start working on site. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And you had an example of a chap that found this out the hard way the other day.
Yeah, we had a fellow that he come to us and he said, "Oh, I've got my planning permit all ready to go." And when we actually got into it, we realised that one of the conditions on his planning permit was he needed to have endorsed plans. So he hadn't done any plans yet. So we had to go and he hadn't budgeted for an architect or anything like that. So we had to try and help him out, come up with some plans for him to get it through council. Luckily, the council was favourable to us, and it was favourable to the client, and we could get it through. But some councils aren't always favourable, so it's not always easy.
That's it. So I guess in wrapping up, tip number 1, or the pillar number 1, we've brought up about understanding the different levels of approval. Level 1 ticks off whether your proposed structure ties in with the council's plans for your area. Does it fit the zoning for the property? Is the property going to look? Is the structure going to look okay? Is it going to fit in with the surrounds? Level 2, much more detailed, much more focused on your project, your site, making sure you tick all the boxes from a national construction code point of view. Righto. So pillar number 2, or tip number 2, is looking at what information do I need. It can be a bit overwhelming. So Aaron's going to run through now what information you typically require for level 1. Over to you, Aaron.
That's it. Yeah, so your high level approval, being level 1 planning permit and your development application, you typically need a site plan showing your structural location, existing buildings, distance off boundaries, and car parking, loading bays and things like that. So that's number 1. And your elevations, so the elevations of your proposed structure showing different views, east, south, north, west, and the dimensions of your structure. And you also need title documents and plan of subdivision, and details of covenants on your property. And you also need an application form. And it also might be other reports that are required. We had a scenario recently, which is down in Nellie Cootie. You want to go on that, Shane?
Yeah, so there was this shed we had to build in adjacent to Lake Nellacooty, and on that property there was 2 overlays which required special reports and plans to be done to show how we were complying with those overlays. So one of the overlays was a landscape significance overlay, and this required plans to show how the shed wasn't going to impact the landscape. So we had to put up a line of trees so that you couldn't see the shed from the adjacent road when you're looking across the lake.
Just jump in there, Shane, so the council were pretty adamant they didn't want a shed obstructing the view of the lake or the natural view, so they encouraged our client to, or to get approval, I guess, that client had to arrange for landscaping, more trees to be put in to sort of hide the shed. Is that right?
Yeah, hide it behind the scenery.
Yeah. And, so level 1, that's your sort of high level information you need, and then level 2, Aaron, what's required for your level 2 approval?
Yeah, so for your building permit or your construction certificate, you'll need your engineering drawings, your civil, structural, and hydraulic. Planning documents should accompany that for your submission, and your septic permits, section J, which is also known as your energy rating reports, soil reports, title documents again, and your covenants, application form, and compliant plan. So typically these are quite detailed, so you need to get an architect involved to get these to make sure they comply with the national
Construction
codes. Yeah,
that's it. So there's a fair bit going on, and it can be a bit of a overwhelming process, but it's always guaranteed to give you a few headaches here and there, but we're going to try and help you out as much as we can. So that's pillar number 2. We've gone over number 1, what's different levels of approval. Number 2, what's required for each level. And now tip number 3 is we always recommend to be partnering with a professional. You guys are good at what you do, but you might not be doing this sort of stuff every day of the week. So Shane's going to run through a few advantages of partnering with someone that knows a bit more about the system and background of it than we might or you might.
Yeah, so working with an architect is they can submit. A lot of them can submit your planning permits for you. So get all the reports and everything together, and obviously look after your soil reports and section J's and all those sort of things. So it's always good to find a good architect that can help you out in that area. Also, you can work with a builder, commercial builder. They can obviously handle everything for you as well, from start to finish. This obviously working with a professional will help you, like obviously save your time and money and guide you through the process. Yeah.
In our experience, you say, Shane, that a lot of the councils prefer to be dealing with people that understand the process. They sort of don't like, I wouldn't say wasting time, but re-explaining how things work. So we certainly recommend partnering with someone throughout the process. And as experienced shed company ourselves, we can certainly help out with a lot of the information you do need, but there is stuff that's a bit outside our scope. So architects are normally involved as well. You had a good example the other day, didn't you, Shane, of where we should have really bitten the bullet and gone with a professional?
Yeah, so we were trying to save some money going through the council. They were obviously a lot cheaper. This is in New South Wales. We didn't realise that there was some reports that were required with the application. And so we had to go and engage a professional certifier to write up some reports for us. And this was additional $3,000 that we didn't account for. And the certifier told us that they could actually, if we had have gone with them to do the whole complying development, they would actually handle that part of the process. So that's obviously why they're a bit more expensive in the first place, because they look after everything for you.
That's it. So sometimes it's worthwhile to spend a bit extra money up front, and because they know what's involved, they can really handle the whole lot from A to Z, saving you a lot of time and headaches in the process. That's our tip 3. Always recommend partnering with professionals throughout the process wherever you can. Tip number 4 is about being proactive. Now, this the approval process of any commercial development can take a while. We're talking, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 months. We don't know. There's no real golden answer there, but there is, and whilst you are waiting for your approval, we always recommend to keep busy. And we want to go over a few things today that you can do in the waiting process, waiting time, to make sure you're ready to hit the ground running when you have got that firm final approval. But there obviously is an element of risk involved if you are getting things arranged prior to getting approval. So that we always will remind you of that. There is some element of risk, but often a council will give you verbal approval or some level of approval, which can sort of give you confidence to move on or move forward with some plans for your development. And you might say, well, what can I do in the background? There's not much I can do. Well, there is. You can be engaging your trade partners. Let's say, for example, you're an owner builder, you could be engaging your electricians or your plumbers before you've got approval, and that way they can lock you into their schedule. You can be working on refining your budget, making sure you've got everything accounted for, so you're not regretting, there's costs that pop up after the fact. But even go as far as site works. Now, this is not always advisable, but it can be done. You obviously can start turning some soil on site if it allows, to make sure that you've made some progress in that waiting time. So really important that you can. I mean, the example there, I guess, Shane, is we had a client the other day over at Cobram who took advantage of this. Whilst they weren't, as Ross points up here, we don't dig the footings, no way. We can't get that started until we've got firm final approval. But we can certainly start working on sort of the base for the shed, can't we, Shane?
Yeah,
That's right.
we had a guy in over in Cobram last year, and he was proactive once he received verbal approval. So he got us to get the shed happening. I think that was last May, and then in July he placed his shed order in July, and then he had formal approval come through in November, and we had the structure on site also mid-November. So he saved him about 90 days there by getting that kick started.
So just to reiterate what Darren's pointed up there is, our client came to us in July. He had some sort of verbal approval a couple of months earlier, but he was able to save almost 3 to 4 months of waiting for his potentially waiting for his shed kit to come to site. We had it there, I think, within a few days, Shane, Aaron, of getting the written approval in place. So in this instance, we're able to keep to the initial time frame that our client had in place, and I'm sure he would be very thankful for that looking back now.
Yeah, it's quite a large build as well.
That's it. So that's point 4 is let's keep busy. Let's be proactive in the waiting time and get as many of those T's crossed and I's dotted as you can. So when you have got your letter to go ahead, you can jump right in there. So I guess just to recap on what we have covered today for those in the audience, number 1 was sort of the hairy one, understanding the different levels of approval. So the planning approval, we call it, or planning permit in Victoria, also known as the DA stage in New South Wales, is your high level approval, making sure your application ties up or is in line with the zonings, with the council plans for the area. Level 2, a bit more nitty gritty, making sure your build complies with the National Construction Code. And in NSW, that's the construction certificate. In Victoria, that's the building permit. From there, we moved over to making sure you have all the information on hand that you need. And we're always happy to give you some guidance there. Point number 3, always try and partner with a professional. Whilst it might seem an expensive process, like it is, we won't shy away from that. Your time's critical as well. So always important to try and partner with professionals in the process and be proactive, keep busy in the waiting time. Do as much as you can from a planning or engagement of trades to make sure you're ready to go. So that's the end of our the 4 tips we're sharing today, and we're excited to open up a bit of a Q&A session. There has been a couple roll in. I'm just going to check the chat box if there's any more. Rick's asked a question about the episodes being available, but they're certainly going to be shared. Rick, we'll get there to you shortly. Got a question here from Adrian, who's asking, can our company look after the permits? This is probably on for Shane.
Yeah, so we're happy to help through the process. We've obviously got a lot of contacts and know a lot of architects that can help out. So we're here to guide you through the process.
That's it. That's good. And Ben's put a good question here on the chat. Can you recommend anyone to do the permit? Shane, I'll go to you here, but just before we do that, I guess it depends on your area. There is local specialists in each area, but what would you say to that question?
What was the question again?
Sorry, can you recommend anyone to do the permit?
Can we recommend anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, of course.
So obviously we can help as much as we can, but obviously for a commercial build, we would recommend a local architect maybe to get involved for your plans. Hope that helps, Ben. A question here from Gabby. This is a hairy one. I'm going to get Aaron to do this one, I think. How long on average does the approval process take? Good luck with this one.
Okay. So with your level 1 being your planning and your planning permit or your DA, that's typically around 2 to 3 months. And then your building permit, so level 2 would be around 4 to 6 weeks. So overall, you're probably looking at around 3 to 4 months. It's all dependent on what's involved.
Yeah, so there's no real concrete answer there. I hope that helps, Gabby. And we've got a question here from Darren. Darren's asking, what could potentially go wrong in the approval process?
So in the approval process, the time frame can be drawn out a lot longer than you may have anticipated, or the council may not be favourable to you, what you want to build. So yeah, that can make it hard for you.
So what that means, I guess, Darren, is if the council's not entirely favourable from the outset, they could make you prepare more reports or get more consultants involved, just I guess to slow the process down and probably hope that you actually eventually walk away from it. But I guess another point there, Shane, is if you've got neighbours that are upset about the development or anyone in the community, they can certainly cause delays and cause you to get further consent. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's also another question here from Rick. So, will you need costings prior to submitting a DA in New South Wales? Yeah, that's right. So the council would require a cost estimate. When you submit the application, they always request to put in the cost estimate. That's how they come up with their figures to charge you.
So how accurate would that need to be, Shane, the cost estimate?
It'd have to be within, it'd have to be fairly close. Yeah.
So as best you can. I've got a question here from Ben as well. Would you recommend speaking to neighbours before lodging an application with council?
Might be worth getting friendly with them. So
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, always good tip, Ben, to share the ideas with your neighbours if you can. That's if they're already on your side, I guess. But yeah, it does happen. I guess neighbours can be a problem in any development, especially if you're putting something fairly large on the site or something that may obstruct their view of something. So be prepared to work through that if it does come up. But I'm conscious we're getting close to our 30-minute session cutoff time. Thanks everyone for putting through the questions so far. We will get a recording out to those that have been on the call today, as well as that checklist we're going to share as well. And excited to announce that episode 4 of SteelTalk by Steelcorp is going down on Thursday, the 30th of September. So Shane got us into this this webinar game going back a few months. So here we are, episode 3, and looks like it's rolling on to episode 4. And this one here, Aaron, what's this heading all about?
Owner build. So approaching the build as an owner builder and undertaking the whole project from start to finish as the owner builder. So
I just want to give you some practical tips around what to expect as an owner builder. There is some things that might be a bit of a surprise to you or shock, and we want to try and prepare you for those, but also give you some advantages as well. There is really some key advantages of being an owner builder for your commercial project.
that's it.
So Thursday the 30th at 2:30 p.m. So that's about 4.5 weeks or 5 weeks from now, is it? We're on a Thursday now, I think. And we look forward to seeing you there. We'll be sure to get the link out to register for the next episode. And I just want to thank everyone for joining. Thanks for giving us 30 minutes of your time.
Thanks,
and
guys.
It's been a pleasure having you guys. Thanks,
Good on
Mark.
you.
Thanks,
Have a good
James.
day.
Thanks, Leone. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Aaron. Talk to you soon.
See you later.